Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon in 14 degrees of Taurus, which will be exact on May 4th at 6:45 p.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, and that is also 11:45 p.m. London time. Now, of course, the new moon marks a new moon cycle, and it's an introverted time. It's when we want to go within and kind of learn about what we wish to align ourselves with for the next 28 days, what's happening energetically speaking. And right around the time of the new moon, it is really a good idea to just get really quiet and see if you're getting any new messages or ideas, from this new moon energy. And it comes from an intuitive place. So if you are getting anything like that, it's important to harvest these messages and fold them into your intentions that you want to set for the new moon cycle. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about this intention setting process later in the forecast, and I'll give you the best and most potent time for setting those. So stay tuned until the end if you want to engage with that. And please also take advantage of the timestamps that I've created for this, for all of my videos. They are in the description part of the video. You will see little numbers next to whatever we're talking about, all the bullet points. And so if you click on those numbers, if you go to those time stamps in the video, you will get to whatever it is that we're talking about in terms of that bullet point, because there's always lots to talk about for each new moon and for each full moon, right? So in case you want to watch the video, in shorter sequences, or you want to skip something, or whatever you want to do, right? So you have flexibility. All right, so let's talk about this new moon. So the new moon is going to be in steady, peaceful Taurus. And so that means that our focus is on the interaction with the physical world. And you could say that we seek a healthier relationship to matter. So that's, matter is anything that has, a physical body. So that is our own physical body, but it's also things that we have in our environment that have physicality, right? That we can touch, that we can taste, or that we can see, or that we can hear. Anything connected to the five senses is a Taurus thing, right? Now, what we want to pay attention here is that we want to make sure that we're neither too attached nor too disconnected from the things on the physical plane. So that also has to do with our resources that we have, such as money, for example, and the planet that we live on, that we all co-inhabit together, right? So we're definitely powerfully reminded in these next 28 days to take the time to honor our planet, to honor our body, and to honor our resources and the beauty that is all around us. Now, in much the same spirit, we're also invited to honor ourselves and our talents. And so this is a good time for reevaluating our relationship to money and possessions, and for discovering what truly makes us happy and fulfilled in life. So check in with yourself. As I was just saying all of that, what came to mind when you heard all of that? And feel free to just kind of stop here and contemplate a little bit on that. You can even pause the video and just contemplate, how does all of this resonate with me? Now, let's talk also about some of the aspects that this new moon chart is making to all the other planets at the time of the new moon. So there's a sextile to Neptune in Pisces, and a trine to the South Node and Saturn in Capricorn. Now, what does that mean? So first of all, let's take a look at Saturn in this configuration, because Saturn also happens to be exalted at the time of the new moon, which means that the energy of Saturn is stronger because Saturn has just started its yearly retrograde phase just 5 days before the new moon becomes exact on April 29th. So with Saturn, in this case, Saturn is exalted and retrograde. That suggests that we will focus on our long-term commitments with a drive towards self-mastery. So we definitely there's an internal process going on with Saturn being retrograde. And so we're really feeling this strong sense of like, what am I committed to, or how can I get better at this, or how can I make something better in my life, right? How can I become more of an expert or more of an authority figure in that part of my life? So if this is a process that takes place on an unconscious level, so if you're not consciously engaging with this, in other words, or without taking the appropriate steps, you kind of like connecting to it, but you're not actually taking action on it, then that can create a tremendous amount of pressure that we can feel with the Saturn station, the Saturn exaltedness. And so that can create resistance. So our resistance to this pressure can also generate low level of anxiety, sometimes even depression. So as best as you can, slow down a little bit and focus on what's sitting right in front of you that needs to be taken care of so you can get to that next phase of accomplishment. Rushing is definitely not what we want to be doing right now. It's definitely going to backfire. So with Saturn being so strong in this new moon chart, slow down. Now, things that you can ask yourself here is, what does self-mastery look like for me personally? Because remember, these things are personal processes, individual processes. So we don't want to look at how do other people do self-mastery, right? How do I do self-mastery, or how does that look like for me, or what's my next step on that path, right? Now, considering where I am right now in my life, what inner commitments am I ready to make? That's a really fantastic question, because we are really being invited here with the Saturn retrograde to either make new commitments or to revisit some of the commitments that we've made in the past and to see, do they still work for us? Are we on the right path with that? So considering where you are right now in your life, and this is very important because Saturn wants us to be very present with what is, not with where we want to be, what we wish it to be, but with what is. So considering where I am right now in my life, what inner commitments am I ready to make? Another question you can ask here is, where are my efforts best applied at this time, and where do I want to be more effortless? So again, this is sort of like the two sides of each of the coin, right? It's sort of like the duality of it is, where do I want to apply efforts at this time, or where do I want to feel more effortless? Right? So both of these questions are important to engage with, because there will be places where you want to kind of put more effort in, and there will be other places where you want to kind of wean off, kind of like take off the pressure and take off some of the efforting, right? Now, if you want to have access to the new moon questions from this video, because there's going to be a bunch of them in writing, and this might be important if you wanted to journal with these questions, if you wanted to meditate with the questions, or if you just want to have the questions there so you can go back to them, as you are going through the next 28 days with this new moon energy. So if you want to have access to these questions in writing and also to the full moon video every month, feel free to check out the various levels of membership that are available on my website at astrologercoach.com. because all of that would be available to you if you become a member. If you're already a member, please go to the blog page and look for the tag New Moon Questions. That's on the right-hand side of the blog page if you look at it from the computer. If you're on your phone, it's at the very bottom of the blog page. You have to scroll all the way down. And then you can also look for the New Moon in Taurus article, because that's where the new moon questions are. So if you find the new moon in Taurus article first, before you find the new moon questions tag, then feel free that both of those will bring you to the new moon questions. All right, now back to the new moon aspects. So there's a trine that the new moon is making to Saturn and the South Node in Capricorn. And so this promotes a realistic and responsible long-term approach. And we have a chance to better align our goals with our values. But we need to make sure that we look at this realistically and say what works, what doesn't work. So it's easier for us right now to sustain what we have started, and we bring a heightened sense of commitment to everything because of that. But it's very important to know what works and what doesn't, right? If we put our focus and our effort into something that's not working, then that's not going to be helpful. So just remember, to really take a conscious and close look at what's working. So we're also invited to evaluate anything that has become rigid or oppressive in our lives around long-term commitments and achievements. And this is very important, that's very much connected to that South Node in Capricorn, because that South Node really wants us to take a look at the lower vibrations of Capricorn to see, where do we feel oppressed? Where do we feel rigid? Where do we feel there's too much pressure on us? Because we need to take a look at that so that we can start to untangle some of that and release it or redefine it or approach it from a different place, so that we're not feeling all of these lower vibrational Capricorn energies. So what you can ask yourself here is, if I'm completely honest with myself, what do I truly want for myself long term? What do I truly want for myself long term? And what really matters to me? And these are really good questions to meditate on or to just sit with. Remember, you don't have to answer these questions. You merely want to pose the question so that your intuitive self can connect with the energy of that question and bring the answers to you rather than seeking the answers, right? Now, what would it look like if I build something sustainable and long-lasting that aligns with my values and talents? And the key words here are sustainable and long-lasting, because Capricorn is really about sustainability. Whatever we're building right now, if it's not going to last, if it's not going to be sustainable, we might as well not bother, because we're not going to get to our goal if we're doing that. If we're going too fast, if we're skipping steps, if we're not being responsible, if we're not being mature about things, if we're not being realistic, right? So that's very important to really ask yourself, what would it look like if I build something sustainable and long-lasting that aligns with my values and talents? Because Taurus is values and talents, right? Now, what healthy boundaries could I put in place to honor my body, my enjoyment of life? And these are all Taurus questions, right? Because Taurus really wants us to just enjoy life, wants us to enjoy the physicality of life, wants us to slow down and smell the roses. So what would help me with slowing down and smelling the roses? What would be helpful in connection with that? Now, another aspect that is connected to this new moon is that the new moon sextiles Neptune in Pisces. And so this is really an opportunity for us to join our need for material comfort and enjoyment of life with a much gentler, more intuitive approach, so that we're not just connected to the physical part of life, but we're also connecting to the intuitive, energetic part of life. So this is the opportunities here to bring the two together, the physical and the energetic. And so what we want to ask ourselves here is, how might meditation or mindfulness, simply being present in the now moment to all the energies around me, how would that support my enjoyment of life? And again, it's just something to experiment with, to explore. And also remember, you do not have to, engage with all of the questions of this video. Engage with the ones that really resonate with you. And I know I say this all the time, but for those of you who are new to my videos, you're hearing this for the first time, and I think it's important to say that. Now, some other questions you can ask here with this Neptune sextile. What might merging my 5 senses and my 6th sense look like? So Taurus is very much about the 5 senses, right? It's about smelling, tasting, hearing, seeing, touching, feeling, but on a physical level, right? So it's very much like all those 5 senses. And then the 6th sense, of course, which would be kind of like our third eye, or our sensing body on an energetic level, that's connected to Neptune. So what would it look like if we could merge the two? What if we could bring a sixth sense to our five senses and connect that? What would that look like? And what small or huge actions can I take to make this happen? And so just remember, like whenever we want to integrate something, or whenever we want to incorporate something new in our lives, it's important to remember that, you know, small actions are just as valid as big ones. You know, little steps are just as valid as one big step. Because sometimes just taking tiny little steps, you know, every single day can actually be a lot more useful than taking one giant step one day and then nothing for 3 months, right? So just remember, like, just little steps, you know, and tune into what that might be for you. You know, what small or huge actions can I take to make this happen? Now, in our next forecasting forum on May 21st, we will talk in more detail about Neptune. So if you are at all interested in Neptune's energies, in what Neptune represents, you know, if you're Pisces, for example, that would be your ruling planet, or if you have a strong Neptune in your chart, if you have Neptune on your ascendant or on your sun, or on conjunct with any of your personal planets, or on the career point, you know, that would be a person with a strong Neptune. If you have that in your birth chart, if you have a birth chart already, then this might be a good webinar to engage with and to connect with, because we're going to be looking at Neptune's movements in relationship to our own birth chart. We're going to get to the bottom of some of these questions. You know, what is going to come into your awareness between June 1st and July 13th in regards to all those Neptune energies: universal love, compassion, oneness, divine connections. Because that's when Neptune is going to be exalted in the sky at that time. And then also, what area of life is impacted by this heightened experience of compassion and idealism, right? So we get a sense for how does this play out in our own lives, right, during the webinar. If you want to register or want to get more information about this webinar, then feel free to click on below the video. There's going to be a link, or you can also go to my homepage, to astrologercoach.com, and just scroll down to the forecasting forum countdown, and there you can click on register now and get more information, or register there as well. Now, if you are already a star or superstar member, you will be automatically signed up for the forums, and you will receive 2 emails, one with the link to join the webinar live on the day of the webinar, and another link to download the video recording within 24 hours of the live event. So watch out for those emails, and if you can't see them in your inbox, then either check your junk mail folder or email us to let us know that you didn't receive it, okay? You can email us at info@astrologercoach.com. All right, now let's look at some of the other aspects that are connected to this new moon chart. One of the things we want to look at is Venus, because Venus is the ruler of Taurus and is moving through Aries at the time of the new moon. And so this means we currently have more energy than usual and are therefore more likely to want to get out of the house and be active with other people. And so what you want to ask yourself here is, what is something new that I want to engage in? What do I feel passionate about? Does the relationship to myself need a jump start right now? You know, do I need to do something to connect with myself more fully, with my passions more fully? What do I personally value that calls for me to take initiative at this time? So these are all really, really great questions that are connected to that Venus in Aries. And again, you know, meditate or journal on those. This might be quite valuable in the next 28 days. Now, a couple of last questions in connection to this Venus placement is, if I had no apologies whatsoever, if I was just me, no apologies about who I am, what would I do to truly support a healthy connection to myself and life? So what would I do to truly support a healthy connection to myself and life? And what would I connect with? right? Or who? What or who would I connect with? Now, Venus is also trining Jupiter in Sagittarius at the time of the new moon. So this is definitely an enthusiastic connection, and that supports us in seeing the bigger picture. Jupiter is all about the bigger picture. So we tend to relate to others in a positive and even inspiring manner. And it's going to be much easier to make social contacts at this time with all that expansiveness that we're feeling. So we definitely have plenty of energy at the time because, you know, we're dealing with fire signs here. Venus in Aries, Jupiter in Sagittarius. Fire has a lot of energy. And so our outlook is very cheerful and hopeful. The atmosphere is cooperative. So that Venus placement is definitely a positive Venus. You know, it's definitely sort of like a engaging Venus. So you can ask yourself here is, what opportunities are opening up to me at this time? And what actions might bring about expansion? What if I ask who as well as how? So that last question is very powerful. I want you to play with that a little bit if you can, you know. What if I asked who as well as how? And then since Venus is in Aries, let's also briefly talk about Mars, because Mars is the ruler of Aries. And so Venus and Mars actually need to play together in these next 28 days to see, we need to see how our active side might support our values and our relationship to our persona. In other words, how we show up in the world. All right, so Mars is currently in Gemini and is opposing Jupiter in Sagittarius. So this combination brings lots of enthusiasm to our interactions with others. We have an abundance of physical and mental energy at this time. So consider channeling this energy into studying, learning something, exercising, or outdoor activities like hiking, or engaging in something where you explore something new that you haven't done before. And we may also feel more restless at this time. You know, Gemini, Sagittarius have sort of like a restless quality to them. And so we need a lot of personal freedom, and we feel enterprising and ambitious at this time. So we want to really make it big with this energy. So watch out that you're not overreaching right now. There's a tendency here to overreach a little bit. So what you want to ask yourself here is, how might I catch myself if I started to do that, if I started to overreach? How might I catch myself? Now, Mars is also quincunxing Pluto in Capricorn, and this combo asks us to create an inner awareness and make some adjustments. Now, this aspect is probably the only aspect in this new moon chart that's a little bit more challenging to deal with. So what we're dealing with here is that we have a desire to speed things up a little bit, but with that Mars in Gemini, but we might run into this higher purpose energy or divine will energy that's interested in sustainability and authenticity. And that means slowing down. So what we want to ask ourselves here is, how does my inner dialogue derail my desire for empowerment out there in the world? How is that possible, right? And just remember that the inner dialogue, with Mars in Gemini could be connected to impatient thoughts, or thoughts around, let me do this, that, more, here, diversity, like wanting to jump around. So how could this derail my desire for empowerment out there in the world? And is it possible that being impulsive or scattered creates more fear around long-term achievements? And if so, how might I be able to empower myself or others? Because we might also experience that with other people. We might feel a little bit agitated or a little bit off, right? Or a little bit uncertain about things or uncomfortable. So what if I went deeper rather than faster? And that's the invitation here, right? The invitation with this aspect is just to go deeper rather than faster. Now, to sum it all up for this new moon, it is in our best and highest interest for the next 28 days to honor spirit, in form. So we're all spirit beings, right? We can all agree to that, hopefully. And we all have a physical experience. We can definitely all agree to that, right? That we all have a physical experience. Yet, becoming overly attached to the physical world is just as unresourceful as rejecting the physical world altogether. So for those of us who are very spiritual, we might reject some aspects of the physical world. For those of us who are more present to the physical experience, we might reject, the spiritual component or spiritual aspect of the physical world and, get more attached to just, the physical stuff, like our physical body, our money, our possessions, things like that, right? So we really want to take a look at that. Where are we being more attached? Where we're rejecting? What's the balance here? And the new moon in Taurus also reminds us that ultimately, happiness is an inner state and requires an inner, highly individual process. We each must walk our own path to happiness and inner fulfillment. So the more we can honor ourselves, our talents, and our relationship to the physical realm, the more we can connect to the love and abundance that surrounds us in every moment. And so, of course, it's important to know ourselves. It's important to know our talents. It's important to, know what is my relationship to the physical realm. It's important to investigate that and to be clear about that so that we can really understand, once we're connected to that in a healthy way and in a truthful way, then we can really see abundance everywhere. Then we can see love everywhere that surrounds us in every moment. And just remember that, we're conditioned very often to focus outside of ourselves. We're conditioned very often to focus on the external rather than the internal. And so this new moon is really an invitation to do some of that internal work as well, because we're going to be pulled quite into an external place, with Venus in Aries, with Mars in Gemini, Jupiter in Sagittarius. These are all components that will pull us into the external world, into the outside, which is not good or bad. But it's important to notice that it is an inner process, right? This new moon in Taurus is an inner process. So what you can ask yourself here is, if the physical world was an expression of my divinity, what would I need to add or subtract to experience it as a place of peace, abundance, and radiant love? And just allow yourself to play around with that, allow yourself to even just experiment with, what happens if I add this, or what happens if I subtract something here? What do I experience? What do I get, right? And might adding a daily dash of love, grace, and gratitude add to my experience of this physical journey? Would that add something to me? So this is just some questions again to just allow yourself to get in touch with this new moon energy. So feel free to just marinate with those questions as much as possible in the next 28 days. And if you do have an ascendant or any personal planets in 12 to 16 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, or Aquarius, then this new moon is definitely going to affect you more than other people. If you don't have any personal planets or an ascendant in those degrees and signs, then just take a look at your birth chart, your natal chart, and just look to see where does 14 degrees of Taurus land in your birth chart. Because that house placement in your natal chart will show you where the new moon it has the most impact for the next 28 days. You want to pay attention to that area of your life. Now, if you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to look that up, or if you don't have a birth chart, feel free to also check out my 30-minute class on how to read your birth chart. You can get free access to that class on my homepage. If you go to astrologercoach.com and just scroll down all the way to where you see free class, there's like a little window that says free class. And just watch that video, and you can, at the end of the video, I talk about how to get a copy of your birth chart, and then the video is also about how to apply my videos and my weekly forecasts to your birth chart. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about intentions, setting intentions. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the new moon is also the best and most potent time to set some powerful intentions for this month's moon cycle. And this is best done soon after the new moon becomes exact, and definitely not during a moon void of course phase. And if you want to know a little bit more about moon void of course phases, feel free to read up on that on my website. I have an article about that on my website. So this month, the best and most potent time to set intentions would be between 6:45 p.m. on May 4th and 11:10 a.m. on May 5th. And then again from 11:40 p.m. on May 5th until 6:45 p.m. on May 6th. So all of these above times are given, they're all US East Coast time, right? So if you live in a different time zone, then you may want to either convert the time zones, or you can also join me on my Facebook fan page or on my Twitter page if you want to, if you want to just know when it's the best time to set these intentions, because I'll be posting during those most potent times. I will be posting, to say now is a good time to set your intentions. So if you just want to set your intentions at that point when you see that post, that would work too, whatever you prefer. Now, please remember though that there's going to be a very long moon void, of course, on May 5th that runs from 11:10 a.m. until 11:40 p.m. East Coast time in the US. And so you don't want to be setting intentions during those 12 and a half hours. So instead, during that time, if you think about setting intentions and you can't set them at this time, then just allow your intuition to surface and just allow yourself to resonate with the new moon energies and wait until the moon void, of course, phase is over and set them then. All right, for more information about setting intentions, if you have never done that before, go to my website, go to the blog page, and then look for astrology articles or the tag for new moon intentions. There's a tag. And like I mentioned earlier, that's on the right-hand side of the blog page or at the very bottom of the blog page if you look at it from the phone. So that's available too. There's another article. And if you want to sign up for my free monthly newsletters, you can do that via my homepage at astrologercoach.com, or you can email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter in the subject line. The free monthly newsletters include special offers, the new moon videos, announcements that I'm making about either the monthly forecasting forums or webinars or retreats or anything like that. Now, if you have any general questions about astrology or the new moon, feel free to reach out to info@astrologercoach.com. If your question is of personal nature, meaning it would require me to pull up your birth chart and take a look at your birth chart to answer your question, then please book a reading with me at astrologercoach.com. I have many different types of readings available. And if you are a star or superstar member, you do get discounts for those readings as well. So just take a look and see what's available. Anything between 25-minute readings and 2-hour readings are available. So whatever fits for you at this time, of course. If you have any questions that are connected to what's coming up within the next 30 to 40 days, feel free to also join the next monthly forecasting forum on May 21st, because I'm always happy to answer questions there as well. Okay, so my members will see me in about 2 weeks around the time of the full moon, so we can look at how far we've come since setting our new moon intentions. And please keep in mind that the full moon video is also available to anyone who joins the monthly forecasting forum. So if you register for the monthly forecasting forum, you also get access to the full moon video. You don't have to be a member necessarily. So everyone else, I'm looking forward to reconnecting in 4 weeks for the next new moon. And remember that the new moon is an introverted time. It's a time for reflection. It's a time to go within and to really get in touch with your intuitive side and to get in touch with the energies that are resonating inside of you, so that you can set some beautiful intentions. All right, have a fantastic month and 28 days, and I'll talk to you soon. This is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.